Hello everyone! I'm having the worst toothache, but my dentist assures me that that is the feeling of healing I'm experiencing, so annoying as it is, it's no reason not to show a nice game between Peter Svidler and Vassily Ivanchuk. It's a game from round 13 of the 2013 Candidates Tournament. We've already seen one game, the Carlsen versus Radjabov game, where Carlsen defeated Teimour Radjabov and once again established his lead in the tournament. We will talk about some of the standings after this game, but a lot of things has happened. Ivanchuk defeated Magnus Carlsen already in this tournament, which caused Carlsen to lose the lead in this tournament, and now he faces Peter Svidler. So we do have some photos before this game, and today is a rest day in Norway Championship. So the players are, unlike last year, they had they drove tractors, they were milking cows. And things like that. Now they are having a cooking contest, but I will show some pictures from that event and even some videos, but tomorrow before round 4. But for those of you who want to check it out immediately, feel free to follow the Norway Championship Twitter account. They will have a lot of photos and videos. But now let's check out some of the photos from this game. Here we have Ivanchuk preparing himself for this round against Svidler. You can see Ivanchuk chilling with the crowd before every game. He's a man of the people. Then we have Peter Svidler. I even used this photo to update his profile photo on the left, as it's a very elegant photo, and he appears to be combat ready. So I really like it. And if you really focus, there will appears to be a blurry Ivanchuk in the background. Also a very nice detail to the photo. So then we have a nice close-up of Ivanchuk. You can see that wristwatch on his hand. It's very, it's very tight. So for someone obsessed with time, he really gets into time trouble a lot. Then we have another nice close-up of Ivanchuk. Really, that man really knows how to pose. On the right, there is a photographer I'm unable to identify, and on the left, there appears to be a wild Radjabov lurking. So that's basically it. And we will not be showing the Kramnik versus Gelfand game, which ended in a draw. So that's, again, not a reason not to show a nice Gelfand photo. So there is Boris Gelfand waiting for his game against Vladimir Kramnik with his espresso as usual. So those were the photos. I do hope you enjoyed them, and now let's check out the game. It's a very nice game because Svidler opens with e4 and Ivanchuk counters with the French defense. So we have e6, d4, d5, and e5, the advanced variation of the French. c5, c3, knight to c6, and knight to f3, the Poulsen attack. Bishop to d7, bishop e2, we have knight g to e7, castles, knight to g6, and now g3. You can't immediately kick away the knight using h4 because the queen and knight are guarding h4. So g3, and now c captures on d4. We have c captures on d4, and now f6. f6 is a very nice move, and the French is one of those openings where it's actually okay to play f6 in most of the lines. So if you're not really prepared for a certain line and someone plays f6 in the French, just capture that pawn, which is what Svidler does. E captures on f6, we have queen captures on f6, and now here you can watch an interview with Peter Svidler after this game. He says that he plays bishop to g5 for the purpose of asking questions. What is Ivanchuk's plan, and what does Ivanchuk want to do? So queen to f7 and bishop back to e3. So not really interested in keeping his bishop on g5. We have h6, knight to c3, and the bishop to d6 now. And here a very interesting move by Peter Svidler, which really does show how far his imagination goes. He plays knight to b5. And you might think, okay, that's a weird move to play. Ivanchuk, of course, plays bishop to b8. And what did white achieve here? Next move, a6 will be played. Then the knight has to go back. Everyone loses a tempo. Bishop goes back. And nothing really happening here. But the problem is Svidler looked much further than this, of course. He plays knight to e5. It's a pawn sacrifice, which Svidler says that you don't have to play this, but if you don't play it, then you're gonna probably regret it for the rest of the game. You're gonna have a passive position, and you're gonna think, I could have just sacrificed a pawn and have a nice game. So he does it, knight to e5. We have knight g captures on e5, pawn captures, and now knight captures on e5, and bishop to c5. And now you can see that white has excellent compensation for the pawn. He's preventing black from castling, knight to d6 is coming, threatening, of course, the fork, the king and queen, but black will, of course, capture, and white will win the bishop pair. So definitely a nice compensation for the pawn. We have knight to c4 by Ivanchuk, guarding d6, and now b3. Svidler forces Ivanchuk to move his knight away, so knight to d6 check can be played. But Ivanchuk refuses and he goes b6. Now, of course, if the knight is captured, then bishop is captured. So first, bishop to b4 by Svidler. We have a5, kicking the bishop further back, and here we have bishop to c3. And Ivanchuk plays bishop captures on b5. It is the best move, but it allows bishop to h5, which attacks the queen and the king on e8. So the only move available to black is actually g6. We have bishop captures on h8. This was the whole point of bishop to c3. G captures on h5, and now you can see that Ivanchuk does have two pieces for the rook, and b captures on c4 can definitely be played. But after bishop captures, attacking the rook, rook e1 and bishop to d6, Svidler thought that Ivanchuk's bishop pair will be compensation enough for the exchange. Bishop to c5 is coming, then d4. The bishop will be guarding the e6 pawn nicely, and those bishops will be quite vicious, attacking the white king. So instead, after this g captures on h5 move, a first and in between move, rook to e1, a very powerful move that that plunges Ivanchuk straight into time trouble. And yes, this is yet again another game where Ivanchuk is in time trouble. So what do you do here? B captures on c4 is still an option. The problem is you don't really have any good squares for the knight. The knight can't really move anywhere. If knight a3, then simply queen captures on d5. The rook is now attacking e6. The queen is attacking the rook on a8. Black is completely lost here. So in this position, after this rook to e1 move, Ivanchuk played queen to f5. But it's fair to mention, well, not fair, but definitely interesting, that there is one more move, which I'm sure a player of Ivanchuk's style and caliber would find if not for the time trouble. The move is actually knight to d6, and it seems like the idea is the same. If you play knight to a3, queen captures on d5, rook captures on e6 is coming, queen captures on a8 is coming, but not really. This is a very strong line that was introduced to the players after the game. The engines found this line. After queen captures on d5, king to d7. Yes, simply protecting the e6 pawn and giving up the rook on a8. After queen captures, then comes bishop to c6, attacking the queen and sacrificing yet another piece. So queen captures on b8 is coming, and now queen to f3. Threatening queen g2 checkmate and queen to h1 checkmate. And it's not all that easy to prevent this. The only move is queen a7 check, and after king c8, queen to a6 check. King moves, and now white will have to decide either to repeat with check, which will be then a draw by threefold repetition, or white can avoid checkmate with king to f1, but then white loses the queen, and it will be an extremely difficult position to play. After queen g2 check, king e2, bishop to b5, this checks the king, wins the queen, and after rook checks, king moves, a lot of things are possible. So yeah, a very interesting maneuver. This idea quite interesting. Yeah, after king f1, first you have to check the king. Queen moves, check, and then, yeah, rook c1 check. Yeah, I messed up the variation of it because I put the king here, but it doesn't really matter. Black would definitely have to choose between threefold repetition and playing this game queenless. But yeah, if he would have two rooks for the queen, everyone would prefer probably the queen and knight here. But again, it's very hard to say. Ivanchuk didn't find it, nor did he play it. So queen to f5 was played, and now comes pawn captures, finally on c4. Bishop captures, and now queen to d4. We have bishop to c7, bishop to e5, offering a trade, and Ivanchuk castles queenside here. Rook a to c1, putting that rook in front of the king, rook d7, and here Svidler says that after Ivanchuk played this rook to d7 move, that he looked away. He was like, doing his Ivanchuk thing, probably staring at the ceiling, and Svidler played a4. And Svidler says that even though Ivanchuk was in time trouble, when Ivanchuk looked back at the board, Svidler says that he could see in Ivanchuk's eyes that Ivanchuk couldn't find the move Svidler played. It took him like 30 seconds to figure out that Svidler actually played a4. So okay, queen to g4, Ivanchuk offers a trade of queens, queen to e3, and h4 now, trying to bust open the king side. Queen captures on h6, pawn captures g3, pawn captures g3, and now bishop to d8. Now with ideas of a bishop attacking on g5 to attack the queen and the rook. So we have bishop to f4, preventing this, and also now the queen and rook are both attacking the e6 pawn. We have rook to e7, this does defend the pawn, but it will lose the exchange. Bishop to g5, king to d7, bishop captures, and king to g2. We have bishop to d6 and now f3. Queen to a5, and after queen to g7, this was check, and Ivanchuk has to move the king, but it was in this position on move 37. 3 moves before reaching time control, Vassily Ivanchuk yet again lost the game on time. Of course, it's a better position for Svidler. He has 2 rooks against the bishop pair, and although the 2 rooks are not very active, the bishops are controlling the board very nicely, still it's a better position for white, and in time, most likely Svidler would win this. But yeah, this is the 5th game in this tournament Vassily Ivanchuk lost on time, and it's quite amazing. You play the candidates and you lose 5 games on time. I actually thought Ivanchuk would maybe qualify for the 2018 candidates tournament, and he did almost reach it. He was kicked out of the World Cup when he played against Levon Aronian, but yeah, he was very close. But if he didn't play, then if he played, then Aronian wouldn't play. So it's not everyone can play. But I'm sure Ivanchuk will keep playing, and he will probably play in the World Cup and qualify perhaps for the next candidate. So maybe we'll see more of Ivanchuk in the next candidates tournaments. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and let's check out the standings before the final round. So Carlsen caught up to Vladimir Kramnik. It's 8.5 points for both of them, and then follows Aronian and Svidler with 7. So in the final round, regardless of how any game goes, only Carlsen and Kramnik can win the candidates tournament. So not a lot of people in the race, only 2 of them, and Carlsen has better additional criteria. He has more wins than Kramnik, even though they have the same amount of points. So Kramnik has to have more points. So definitely he should either win and Carlsen draw, or he should draw and Carlsen lose. And as the drama would have it, Carlsen faces Peter Svidler in the last round, and Vladimir Kramnik faces none other than Vassily Ivanchuk in the last round. And Ivanchuk said after this game against Svidler that he lost on time. He says, they asked him, what are your expectations or your plans in your games against Vladimir Kramnik? And he was like, I'm not really interested, it's just a game. Better would be to prepare for my next tournament, the Russian Championship. So yeah, that's the game. Once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Jacques Cramet, Bill Ray, Abbas Alo Mohammed, Damien Tatum, and Eugene English Teacher for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon today with another game from the final round of the 2013 Candidates Tournament. Thank you all, and see you soon.